Hello, my dear adventurers, it's Fox. Welcome on back to the tavern. Sit by the fire and warm yourself. I hope you're ready, because tonight you set out on your very own quest. You'll be stepping into the shoes of Rowan, an adventurer of no renown, whose grandest achievement thus far has been leaving their home village to strike off in search of greater things. With nothing but the cloak on your back and a well-sharpened sword, you arrive in the town of Dunholt, hoping to earn some small quest from a minor lord and begin your legend. But a case of mistaken identity turns the whole venture on its head and throws you headlong into the adventure of a lifetime, long before you're due. Oh, and if you like what I do here and want a way to support the channel while getting early access to future stories, consider checking out my Patreon, linked in the description. You'll find all my previous collections, including more First Quest POVs and over 100 stories, ad-free. But for now, get cozy and get ready for your first quest. The road to Dunholt has been chewing away at your boots since dawn, and you've gotten used to hearing the squelch of soft mud, that wet suck pulling at each step over and over. The night before had been a misery start to finish. The rain had come down without let, from dusk till the waking hours. You'd spent the worst of it hunched under a hedge that kept its water about as well as a sieve, so that by morning there wasn't a stitch on you that wasn't wrung out and clinging to your skin in that cold, maddening way. The wool of your cloak's gone dark and is twice its weight with water. Your shirt is pasted to your back, and your undergarments, well, let's just say they're in a sorry state that you'd prefer not to dwell on right now. You'd cursed the weather and the road and the saint whose feast it was, and you were indeed halfway to cursing the one who'd ordained the rain in the first place. Before you caught yourself, it's best not to blaspheme, you think, especially not with a sword you've never bloodied and a long road ahead. When your luck's still so untested, there's no sense tempting it. And the day, for its part, seems inclined to make amends. The sky is going soft, paling at the edges and deepening to a blue you could fall up into if you stared too long. The winds come round to your back at last, pushing you on toward the gates ahead. And where it finds the damp patches still clinging to your neck and the hollow of your spine, it sets them tingling. The tickle runs down your skin and makes you shiver, but not unpleasantly. You squint against the morning light and see the gateposts come into view. They are two leaning timbers gone grey with rot, and between them a gate whose hinge has rusted to a single ginger-coloured lump fused open. It's clearly no use to anyone for keeping a thing in or out. This is the part you've dreamed about. Not the blisters on your feet, obviously, nor the shoddy town and its lackluster defences, but the act of arriving. You've turned it over in your head 100 nights on 100 roads. The moment a stranger walks into a town, with nothing to their name but a sword that's never seen a fight, and a head full of borrowed stories, and walks out, eventually, as someone. a name people say with a measure of respect. The start of a legend has to look like something you've always thought. And yes, perhaps you thought it would look a little grander than this. Than mud and a dead dog being worried by crows in the ditch. And a child watching you pass with a flat, unimpressed stare that children oft give to things they've already decided are boring. But still, everyone begins somewhere. You're not fool enough to think you'll start by slaying anything. You know how this works. You've heard the songs by the lustful, wildly imaginative bards. And you've heard, more usefully, the men who sing them muttering into their cups about what the songs leave out. You must begin small. You go and find yourself a minor lord with rats in his cellar, or a miller whose boy has run off with the takings, or a square full of drunkards wanting their heads knocked together for the entertainment of the bailiff. And you do the small thing well, and you take the small coin with thanks on your lips. You keep at it, and that is how a reputation is built. Quietly, badly paid, one indignity at a time. Until one day someone needs a real thing done and they remember your name. That's the plan. And you promised your ma and pa that you'd not do anything stupid on your first quest. You rather think that it's a sensible plan for a person of no particular advantages, and you've had nothing but time to admire it. So you walk in through the rusty gate, with your head held high, and into the square. And that, more or less, is where the plan ends, though you don't quite know it yet. The square is not unlike the one in your village, but it's bigger. The muck of it is churned to a brown soup by cartwheels and the passing of feet dotted with strewn straw. A pig roots along the gutter where the slops run, unbothered and unowned, grunting happily at its morning feast as it gorges itself. A turnip seller eyes the passers-by. It's an old woman making no effort to entice anyone, yet muttering choice insults under her breath at every back that turns from her stall. As one fellow passes without so much as a glance at her wares, you hear her brand him the son of a bathhouse maid. You do your best to avoid eye contact, hoping to be spared from an insult to your lineage and honor. Under the eaves, a cobbler is tapping away. But he looks up from his last as you pass, takes one look at your boots and clicks his tongue. God's wounds, look at the state of those. Soles near worn through and the welt gone on the left. You'll be walking on your bare feet inside a fortnight, mark me. Sit yourself down, I'll have them sound again before you finish telling me where you're bound. A few silver, no more. You clear your throat, trying to remember how to work your voice, after days of having nobody to speak to on the road. I've no doubt of it, but I've not the coin for it just now. Another time, perhaps, you say, regretfully. Your boots really are in dire need of attention. The cobbler's interest in you dies on the spot. He hasn't even bothered to look at you, only your boots. Oh, likely story, no coin. he scoffs. He bends back over his last, the tap-tap of his little hammer taking up again. Then quit darkening my stall and wasting an honest man's daylight, eh? Be off with you. Come back when you're flush then, and not before. You duck your head and walk off. You make for the nearest bucket of water, to rinse off the grime and dirt caked onto your temples, and look a bit more like an honest, well-meaning traveller than a filthy vagabond looking to stir trouble. You're very thirsty, and although you told the cobbler you've no coin, that wasn't completely true. You have a few silver and one precious gold coin that your ma pressed into your palms before you left. But you need those to afford a drink and a stay at the tavern as you look for work. So you keep heading inwards. A town like this will have one tavern, and you find it by the noise. It's a low, slumped building, leaning companionably on the chapel beside it. The house of God and the house of drink sharing a wall. And you'd wager a fair few of the same patrons of a Sunday. No use in standing out in the open, loitering about. So you step inside. It's dim and smoky, even for such a bright day. And it takes your eyes a moment to make anything of it after the outside light. It doesn't smell any worse than any other tavern you've been to. The spilled ale has gone sour in the floor rushes, and you quickly sense the close, warm reek of men who've been sitting in their own company and their cups since the day before. And somewhere under all of it, the tallow stink of the rushlights guttering on tables, giving the whole place a faintly meaty scent that has nothing to do with the food. There are benches and chairs worn shiny by decades of arses sat upon them. A long board stained black with rings and a fire burning away in the hearth, doing its best to ward off the chill and damp of the night before. You can see a thin dog under a table, working at a bone with single-minded devotion. The custom is sparse and unpromising, but it is quite lively for the time of day. A pair of carters are playing dice loudly. A man in a blacksmith's apron, taking his ease from the grind of the forge, sips at a cool ale between promises. A new horseshoe for this fellow's mare, a mended hammerhead for that one, and all the other small demands that village life lays at a smith's door. A drunk folded over a table in the corner is either asleep or dead, and no one is troubling to find out which. You see the innkeep behind his board, fixing you with an appraising look, working out exactly how much you're likely to spend, and exactly how much trouble you're likely to be, and finding by the set of his mouth that the sums don't favour you. But this'll do, you think. This is where the work is in a place like this. There's plenty of people here, including a few fellows with hefty purses on their belts. You make for the quest board at the other end of the tavern, turning over in your head how best to go about the asking. You could approach a carter, maybe, or one of the farmers, and ask whether there's any honest labour going. No, that's too menial by half. If you'd wanted to till soil or haul sacks. You could have stayed home and broken your back for your father and saved your boots the trouble. You came for a proper quest. So instead, you'll go up to one of the fat burgers or a prosperous merchant. Straighten your shoulders, put a bit of steel in your voice, and ask whether there's any small trouble wants seeing to. Men like that always have some grievance going. Bandits on the road that scare their carts, or thieving goblins picking at the grain stores. Sometimes a debtor wanting a stern word, but who'll scare easy before a sword. But the wave of disappointment that washes over you arrives before you've picked your man. Because the board, when you reach it, is near enough bare. Only a few papers hammered into the wood. A baker wanting an apprentice, boy or girl, willing hands and no wages worth the name. The blacksmith after the same. There's a notice about a strayed sow, the reward being the gratitude of her owner, and, you suspect, very little else. And one notice newer than the rest, the ink barely faded, nailed up over the others as though it mattered more. A warning in a careful hand that none was to go up into the North Hills past the old forest. By order of the bailiff, on pain of his displeasure. There's no reason given as far as you can tell. All right, so nothing on the board, but perhaps one of the people sitting about the tavern might have a small quest to send you on. Not everyone wishes to advertise their troubles to the entire village, you tell yourself. Many would surely prefer a touch of discretion and would of course pay handsomely for a tight-lipped, trusty young adventurer such as yourself. You cast another look about the room, trying to find the most promising-looking one amongst the bunch. You don't notice it at the start. You notice it once it's already happened. The way you notice a tooth's gone bad only after the ache. The dice has stilled in a carter's fist, and the innkeep's rag has gone slack. Even the dog is lifting its head off its bone. The blacksmith's crossed his massive arms, and he's looking at you. Dear God, they're all looking at you. Every one of them with an expression you can't place at first, because you've never in your life been on the receiving end of it. A kind of struck, breathless reverence. Your first thought is that your face has something on it, but surely you'd washed it all off earlier at the bucket. Your second thought, which arrives close behind the first and is no more comforting, is that you've wandered into one of those places where they do something unpleasant to a lone stranger and split their purse after. Your ma and pa warned you about those. You let your hand drift toward the pommel of the sword that has never killed anything. And you say, in the steadiest voice you can muster, good day. One of the carters knocks his stool over, getting up. It's you, he says. It is rather demonstrably me, you think, though I'm not sure why that's worth anything. I, you say aloud, it's me. By all the saints, one of the older men has abandoned his flagon of mead and is crossing the tavern toward you with his hat already off and crushed against his chest, and the wet shine in his eyes alarms you more than a drawn knife would. I told my brother, that's them, I said. The day the rider come through with the writ, I said that's the very one, Edda. I'd know that face from the carving on the chapel door. I'd know it blind. The carving on the you start but are quickly interrupted. Same height, says the blacksmith, grabbing both your shoulders in those iron grips of his, no doubt leaving a light bruise. Same eyes. What are you stammer out, dearly wishing he'd let go of you because it's starting to hurt. You hear a voice softer than the rest, and you turn to find one of the serving women come round from behind the board. She wipes her hands quickly on her stained apron before taking your hand in both of hers. She's looking up into your face, hopefully, unnervingly so. Tell us the name, stranger. Tell us we've not gone soft in the head. Your name, say it. You have a sore throat, a woman's hands around yours, a blacksmith's vice grip on your shoulders, and a tavern full of faces wanting one true word from you. And you have no reason on God's earth not to give it. Rowan, you say. My name's Rowan. It is a fine name. It was your great-grandmother's or your great-grandfather's. It goes both ways, that name. It's the sort of name a person can carry, whoever they turn out to be. And you've always been quietly fond of it. The tavern comes apart. The old man is weeping outright now. His brother's name bawled across the room, and someone's gone barreling out the door shouting for the priest. The serving woman has both hands pressed to her mouth, and through the rising din of it you catch a word. The same word passed mouth to mouth like a coal too hot to hold. Rowan, Rowan, it's Rowan. Rowan's come. No, you say, but nobody hears you. No, hold on. There's been... You raise your voice over the racket, but the dogs set to barking, and the carters whooping like it's their own name being cheered. You've mistaken me, I think. I'm not... I think you've got me confused with... But you've already lost. You can feel it. How a current takes a boat when the oars come up. A sudden hoist and a lurch, and you're up in the air. The blacksmith's got you under one arm and a carter under the other. The low beams are very close, so that you have to duck or be brained by the very roof. And they bear you toward the door on a tide of hands you couldn't fight off. And you are not yet so far gone as to attempt and skewer a tavern full of well-wishers over a misunderstanding. There is a Rowan these people are waiting for. A Rowan of great renown by the carving on the chapel door of it, by the writ the rider brought of it. And you have walked into their tavern with that Rowan's height, and that Rowan's eyes, and God help you, that Rowan's name in your own mouth, and told them in a clear voice, in front of witnesses, that it's true. So out into the daylight you go, whether you will or no, borne up on the shoulders of strangers like a saint or a sack of turnips, dodging the doorframe, blinking at the sky, and the whole sorry square you crossed not an hour past rises up to meet you with a roar. You're taken to the bailiff before you can get a sentence out edgewise, which is how you come to be standing in a surprisingly cozy stone room, with a man you've never met gripping your forearm like he means to keep it. The bailiff is a big man gone to seed. He had been, once upon a time, a man of strong stature and discipline, who is now mostly belly, with a face that's spent its whole life worried and has the grooves to show for it. There's a half-eaten supper pushed aside on his table, and a wine cup he keeps reaching for and not quite drinking, his fingers worrying at the stem. And behind him on the wall hangs a sword so ceremonial, so untouched, so purely decorative, that you find yourself feeling a strange kinship with it. "They told me you'd come," he says, wagging a chubby finger gleefully at you. "And I didn't believe them. Forgive an old man his doubt. We've prayed so long for help that I'd near stopped believing it'd grace us." "That's just it," you say. "About the help. I should explain." He cuts you off with a raised palm. You'll want to hear it from the start. He sits heavily, and the chair complains beneath him. You'll have heard the half of it on the road, I don't doubt. But the road carries lies, same as truth, and you'll want the truth from a man who's lived under it. Sit, please. You've come a long way. You don't especially want to sit. Sitting feels like agreement. But the bailiff has the look of a man who will not be hurried. So you sit and you think, "I'll let him say his piece, and then I'll set it straight, plain and kind. And they'll laugh about the carving on the door and point me to whatever lord's got rats, and that'll be that." The bailiff takes a deep breath and lays his palms flat on the table. "Well, no two ways about it. There's a dragon," he says. You wait for more, like a laugh or a slap of the knee. Maybe this is just some humiliating welcome ceremony for strangers in this village. "A dragon," he says again. "In the hills, north and west of here, past the old forest, where the ground breaks up into the high stones. You can't see the mouth of it from town, the trees are between, but you can hear it." His hand goes to the wine cup again. "God forgive me, you can hear it every blessed night. The screaming. Like, there's no like. I've heard a sow stuck for slaughter, and I've heard a man take an arrow in the gut, and I've heard women keen over the dead, and it's none of those. It's worse than all of those put in a sack together and shook. It comes down off the hills after dark, and it gets into the children's dreams, and the old folk won't sleep. It riles the dogs right up too. 3 weeks now. 3 weeks of that howling, and it's getting bolder. It used to be only the deep of night. Now we hear it before the sun's even down." That does sound unpleasant, you think to yourself. You're not without sympathy. But you've also lived your whole life in places where everyone for a mile around knew, with total certainty, things that turned out not to be so. Like the well that was cursed and was only foul, or the witch in the woods, who was just a deaf old woman who liked her privacy. So you keep your face kind, and you say, "And has anyone, forgive me, has anyone seen it? The dragon itself?" The bailiff laughs, a short, ugly sound. And now he does drink, a long, noisy sip. We've seen its work. 'Twas 2 nights past. There's a town beyond the forest, or rather, there was a town. Larkholt. Bigger than us, a proper market, a stone church, near 300 souls. We've kin there. Had kin there. His jaw works. 2 nights past, the whole western sky went up. Red as a forge, red enough we could read by it here. And you could smell it on the wind by midnight. You don't forget that smell of people burning. And over the top of it, over the fire, that infernal screaming, the dragon's howls of destruction. He looks at you, and his worried face has become closer to a child's terror, dressed in an old man's skin. It went to Larkholt, and it ate half the place. And when it's done picking its teeth, when it's licked its jowls clean of the last of them, there's only the forest between Larkholt and us. And a dragon doesn't think much of a forest. We're next. As sure as I'm sitting here, we're next, and it's days, not weeks, maybe less. The room is very quiet, and here's what you'll want to remember later. That you did try. You weren't a coward about it. You looked the frightened man in his frightened face and you said gently, "Sir, bailiff, I have to tell you something, and I need you to hear it before you say anything else, because it's important and it's true. I am not the rowan you're waiting for." The bailiff blinks. You sigh and continue. There's clearly a rowan of some renown that's expected here. A hero, and I don't doubt their greatness. But it's a common enough name, and I've a common enough face. I'm no dragon slayer. I've never killed anything bigger than a goose, and that was an accident. I came here looking for rats or goblins. Honest, small work. Whatever your trouble is, you want a different rowan than the one God sent you, and I'm sorry for it. I truly am. There, plain, kind, said with your whole chest. The bailiff looks at you for a long moment. Then he says, to the old man in the corner, the same one from the tavern who led the parade that brought you here. Did you hear that, Toller? Did you hear? I heard, bailiff, says the old man, weeping again. Never killed anything bigger than a goose. The bailiff stands. There are tears standing in his eyes too, now. And you realize with a sinking, helpless horror exactly what is about to happen. Modest, you stand there with the dragon's death writ all over you, and you call yourself a goose killer. That's the hero the songs are about. That's the very humility they sing of. Lord above, you came in disguise. Of course you did. Of course you wouldn't ride in with banners. And you tried to spare us the fright by playing the simple traveller. And you'd have managed it too if my old eyes weren't so. His voice goes, choked up in a sob. He comes round the table and takes your other arm, so that now you are held on both sides by weeping men, like a saint between two thieves. 400 gold pieces, he says. It's the whole of the town's coffer and more. We sold the chapel plate. We'd sell the chapel roof if you asked it. 400 gold to whomever climbs into those hills and ends the beast. Bring me proof it's dead, and the gold is yours, and the gratitude of every soul in Dunholt besides, for all the days God grants us, which will be more days than we'd have without you. Will you do it? Will you save us, Rowan? You open your mouth. You're going to say no. You've every intention of saying no. No is the entire content of your mind. No in letters of fire. No with a hand raised. I am not your savior. Find another. Send to the king. Do anything at all but this. But 400 gold. The sheer enormity of it. The weight of every delight and luxury such a sum would buy. You could drink your fill at every tavern in the realm, and never see the bottom of a purse. Nay, you could own the tavern, a dozen taverns, one in every town with a bathhouse beside each to match. You'd be a name maidens sigh over to make their lovers jealous, a name bards bleed dry for coin, a name parents use on their children to coax them off to sleep. The hero Rowan who slew the beast of the high stones. Now you're no fool. You know full well that were God himself to come down and anoint you a knight on the spot, you'd still have no hope of slaying a dragon. But here's the thing of it. You're not altogether sure there is a dragon. It's nothing but fancy and frightened imagining, the ordinary howl of a wolf pack baying at the moon, worked up by 3 weeks of bad sleep into something altogether more fearful than was ever put in those hills. I'll go and look, you hear yourself say, in a voice that doesn't sound like yours. A lying, deceitful voice, but it comes out surprisingly steady. It is a compromise. A coward's compromise, you'll think later, but a true one. You have not promised to slay anything. You've promised to go and look. You will climb the hills. You will find that there is no dragon, only some natural thing the fear has dressed up in scales. And you will come back down and explain it. And the going and looking will have cost you nothing but a day or two. And these poor frightened people will sleep again. They will be so grateful that they'll give you the coin anyways. That's all. You're doing them a kindness. You tell yourself it's a kindness. Right up until the bailiff crushes you against his belly in an embrace that drives the wind out of you. And the old man kisses your hand, and somewhere out in the square, the badly rung chapel bell starts up. You hope you've not made a grave mistake. But before another word of dragons, he'll have you fed. The bailiff won't hear otherwise. A guest under his roof, a hero besides, sat there hungry while he runs his mouth. God would strike him for less. He bellows through the door, and a board comes out near as quick, and he clears his own half-supper aside with one forearm to make the room. It's good food, the best the house has, and plenty of it. A round loaf, warm yet, at the middle, dark and close-grained, the crust gone hard enough to want a strong jaw. A wedge of yellow cheese that's sweating a little, but sharp and tasty. They bring you a bowl of pottage thick enough to stand the spoon up in. It has barley and grey peas and shreds of salt bacon. More bacon than a common soul sees in a week. Half a cold roast fowl that he tears in two with his hands, pressing the bigger share on you before you can say a word against it. And ale, dark and yeasty and a touch sour. poured to the brim and topped again before it's half gone down. You hadn't known how hungry you were till it was set in front of you. So you eat. You're not exactly sure how you're meant to supposedly fight off a dragon, feeling this heavy and on the verge of tipsiness. But the bailiff watches you do it well pleased, nudging the bread nearer, filling your cup, near fatherly in his satisfaction at seeing a hero put it away. The bailiff presses a fresh loaf on you for the road and points you north toward the old forest and the high stones beyond it, and tells you twice to mind yourself, and once more at the threshold for good measure. So it's near midday by the time you win free of it all and start up the track out of town, your belly full and your head still ringing with a name that is yours, but also isn't yours. You've not gone 50 paces before someone else finds you. The herbalist is the first of them, and she catches you between the bailiff's door and the road. She plants herself square in your path, so there's nothing for it but to stop. She's halfway between her 25th and 30th summer, and very pretty, though she's plainly no time to spare on the fact. Hair bound back hard out of her face, hands stained green and brown to the wrist, a basket on one hip. She looks you over, and whatever she finds there pleases her, for a corner of her mouth crooks up. "So, you're the one," she says. "The dragon slayer." She lets the word hang, her eyes never quitting yours. I'll own, I looked for someone taller, older, maybe more scars about the face. The smile wins out. I'm not disappointed, mind. Heat climbs the back of your neck. I've not slain the thing quite yet. You manage. No, but you're going up there to do it, aren't you? While grown men in this town piss themselves at the screaming and won't set foot past the chapel after dark. She steps in closer, close enough you catch the green crushed herb smell off her hands. I find that worth a great deal more than scars. Then she's brisk of a sudden, though the warmth doesn't go anywhere. You're heading for the mountain regardless, past the old goat track where it doubles back below the high stones. There's a flower grows. It's called silver breath. A little grey thing, you'd tread on it and never know it was there. But I've great need of it. There's a fever working through the low houses. The Mickle children, and old Senna, and 2 more since yesterday. And silver breath's the only thing that helps with it. And I've used the last of my stock, and more besides. She lifts her chin proudly. I'd go myself. I've gone before, plenty, but not now. Not with that howling up there. I'm brave, not witless. 'Twill cost you nothing but a stoop, she adds, and the crook of her mouth turns sly. And you'd find me ever so grateful. Ask anyone in this town. 'Twere a poor soul indeed who'd say I'm not a good friend to have. And if my company's not enough for you, why, I'll pay you nicely besides. She digs a moment in her basket and hands you a small linen bundle, folded tight and tied with twine. Here, 'tis yarrow, mostly, and a few things besides. For if that beast lays you open before you lay it down, crush it, pack it in the wound, bind it tight. 'Twill stanch the bleeding and keep the rot off till the flesh knits. Her fingers linger on yours, a breath longer than the giving needs. I'd not have you bleeding out up there. 'Twould be a waste of a fine face. You manage a thankful nod and an embarrassing strangled noise, which she takes for a yes, rightly, and goes off laughing. You're alone now as you continue on the path out of the village. But it doesn't last. The holy man finds you next. He's old, older than the bailiff even. A thin, dry stick of a man in a robe that's been patched all over. He doesn't blubber all over you. It would be unbecoming of one such as he. He just falls into step beside you on the road out, walking the way the very old walk, all care and no speed. And for a while he says nothing at all, and you slow to match him, because it would be a poor sort of fraud who shoulders past a priest. You'll think I'm sending you on a fool's errand, he says at last. Father, I've had a great many errands sent my way today. Speak your mind, you say kindly, hoping that you can at least do one good thing today that's actually within the realm of possibility. That gets a dry crack of a laugh out of him. I'd imagine so. He walks a few more steps. What do you know of the flame keepers? Nothing whatsoever, you reply honestly. Good, then you'll not have the lies. He stops and turns, and his eyes are pale and clouded with age. But there's something hard and bright still working behind them. Long before this town, before the old forest was old, there was an order. Keepers of the first flame. The true fire that was carried out of the dark when the world was made. Or so the texts have it. I'll not preach the whole of it at you, you've a mountain to climb. The short of it is this. They were hunted. There came a false king, a heathen, that wanted the flame put out. He hunted the keepers to no end. They were burned and scattered until the order was a memory and then less than a memory. But before the end, the last of them ran north into high broken country, into the stone where men don't go. He lifts a thin hand toward the hills, into those very hills, if the old accounts have it right. And they carried with them the heart of all they knew, written down, sealed against damp and time. And they hid it deep where the hunters wouldn't follow. And there it has lain ever since, if it has lain anywhere at all. And you want me, you say slowly, disbelievingly, to find a scroll hidden by a dead order in a cave in the hills that no one's seen for how long? Longer than the town, longer than the songs. He responds matter-of-factly. In the same hills as the dragon. You continue, thinking that this old man's raving mad. In the very same hills, the priest agrees, with complete serenity. I'd not have asked. I'd resigned myself to dying without it. An old fool's last want, no business of yours. But you're going up there into the deep stone, where no other soul will set foot in my lifetime. And it came to me that God's hand is sometimes plainer than we deserve. If you find a cave that goes back and back, if you find the mark of the flame cut over a doorway, 3 tongues of fire, you'll know it when you see it. Look for what they left. A scroll, a tablet, a book. I cannot say in what form it kept. Bring it to me, and you'll have done a thing that outlasts the dragon, outlasts your very own bones someday. Some good things are worth more than gold. He pauses. The bailiff's 400 is also worth a great deal, mind. I'd take that too. You laugh despite yourself, and the old priest's clouded eyes crinkle. If I find your 3 tongues of fire, you say, I'll bring back what's under them. He sketches a blessing over you with 2 fingers, an old worn gesture, and turns back toward the town. He calls over his shoulder, and you'll want to be past the burnt town before dark. Bad place to be after dark, Larkholt, just now. Larkholt, you think. The burned town. The one with 300 souls that a dragon supposedly sent to ruin. You hadn't realized the road went through it. You square the parcel of herbs in your pocket, and the twist of unease in your gut, and you start up toward the hills. The forest is old, the way the priest said. You can feel it on your skin. The trees are grown so close and so high that the light comes down green and from far away. The floor is deep in many years of leaf fall that gives underfoot. There's a silence in the trees, but it isn't peace. You don't like it. A small mercy of your poverty is that you don't have a horse that would have spooked in a situation like this. You keep your hand near your sword the whole way through. The hours pass by with little disturbance. But in the late afternoon, an awful stench creeps up on you. It's a rank, wet kennel stink, like old meat and pungent musk carried down on what little air moves under the trees. A twig snapping goes off to your left, where nothing ought to be moving as far as you can tell. You stop and plant your feet firm. You may not have drawn blood yet, but you've fought against training dummies and sparred with other aspiring adventurers long enough to hold your own. Your hand finds the grip, and your thumb eases the blade a finger's width from the scabbard, and you stand very still and wait. 3 lurching figures heave out of the undergrowth, panting and snarling, spittle flying as they bound. You think for half a heartbeat that it's wolves. But then you see they're nothing so honest as wolves. Wargs, the old folk would call them, or gnolls. Heavy through the shoulder, hide gone mangy and grey-green, eyes the dull orange of a banked coal. Starved by the ribs on them, they're reckless and bold, fanning out around you, one to your front and one to each flank. God above, you think, and despair. To have come to slay an imaginary dragon, only to be eaten by 3 overgrown pups. The first comes for your throat and there's no time to think, only to do the thing you've drilled 1,000 times against a post in your father's yard. You get the blade up and across, and you take it on the edge, the weight of the creature nearly bearing you over, as it screams and twists off with a long red seam opened down its flank. It tumbles away, but you need to pivot and turn on your right foot. There's no time to keep looking at the injured mutt. The post in the yard never had two friends. You're not fast enough, and one of the flanking knolls hits you low, right at the waist. And you go down into the leaf mould, with its jaws snapping a hand's breadth from your face. Breath like a charnel pit. You've lost the swing of the sword this close, so you drive the pommel against its eye instead, again and again, thrice, till it yelps and rears back, and that's room enough. You get a knee under you and the point up, and the monster half impales itself coming in again, too hungry to be wise. It shudders on the steel and is still. The third must be smarter. It circles around and around. You stand up, filthy and heaving, with your sword red to the guard. Its hellish eyes glance between you and the blade, as it snaps its jaws together and growls. Whatever it sees in you, it likes no better than its dead packmate did. It looks to the one you opened, dragging itself off into the brush, deciding it would rather avoid that fate and seek an easier meal elsewhere. It melts back into the green without a sound. You stand there a while, listening to your own breath, and realize your hands are trembling. Your first blood. Nothing so easy as a man, and not as mythical as a dragon. Just two half-mad beasts in a wood. But the sword has been bloodied now, and so have you. It fills you with a lust for adventure, and for a moment, you feel as if you could take on at least a wyvern, if not a dragon. You trek through the bushes, finding the small stream running alongside the trees, and kneel down to wash the sickly stench of blood off your arms and face. The water is cool and fresh, and it makes short work of the filth. You slide your linen shirt off and wash that too. It would do no good attracting even more creatures to your position if they can smell you coming. This seems like a good spot for a short rest and for some food. The sun here, just past the edge of the trees, is hot and low, and it feels good to dry in it. The bread the bailiff gave you is plenty, so you eat half and tuck the rest away. You're pulling your shirt over your head, getting ready to continue, when you hear a sound that makes your heart skip a beat, and you stop dead. It comes from ahead and above, from the hills past the trees, and the bailiff was right. There's no like for it. It climbs and breaks and climbs again. A sound with a throat behind it, but no shape you can name. Too high and well pronounced to be a thoughtless beast, but too primal to be anything else. It raises every hair on your body. It goes on far too long, and then it stops, all at once. and the silence after is just as bad as the sound was. God Almighty, you think, when your hearts come back down out of your mouth. So there is something making a noise up there, something with lungs. It doesn't have to be a dragon. A great many things have lungs. You tell yourself this with great conviction, and rather less success than you'd like. And you go on, very reluctantly setting one foot in front of the other. You've half a mind to turn back the way you came and just head to another town where hopefully they've not heard of a great and mighty Rowan. The trees finally start to thin, and the green light gives way to the flat grey light of a sky going toward evening. You come out of the forest at the top of a long slope, and there is Larkhold below you. There's no sense in lying to yourself about it. It's burnt all right. A whole town of it, gone to black bones and long streaks of grey ash. That the wind is still, even now, lifting and carrying off in thin veils. The stone church the bailiff spoke of stands roofless. Its windows blown out, smoke black up every wall. Nothing moves but the ash and a few crows. You stand there with your sleeve over your mouth, and your eyes stinging from more than the smoke. And then something moves, after all, down among the black bones. But it's not the dragon. Of course, it's not the dragon. It's people. 3 of them, no, 4, picking through the ruin of what was theirs, slow and bent over as they rummage through the debris. They must be survivors of the attack. You go down to them. They look up at you with flat exhaustion. They're folk who've got no fear left to spare for a stranger with a sword. And the nearest, a broad woman with a soot-grey face and a child asleep against her shoulder. Just watches you come, waiting to find out what fresh trouble you are. I'm sorry, you say, and work over what to say next. I came from Dunholt. They sent me to kill the dragon that did this, you don't say. Because looking at it now, the words have gone strange in your mouth. I'm terribly sorry about your village. I heard there was a dragon. Did it do this then? The woman's eyes move over you, and they widen with tired amusement that you don't understand at all. She shifts the child higher on her shoulder. There was a dragon here. You go on up the hill and slay it then with my blessing. Though I'll tell you for nothing, friend. You'll have a job finding the terror that burned Larkhold, on account of he's not in the hills. She jerks her head toward the black ruin of a fine house, at the town's heart, the biggest in the place. Its hall fallen in on itself. He's in there, what's left of him, burned up in his own bed, with the torch still in his hand. The great drunken fool. You stare at her. Wait, it weren't the dragon that did this? A dragon? Nay. Her tired amusement cracks close to a laugh. a terrible scraped-out laugh with no joy in it, but a great deal of black, exhausted truth. 'Twas what brewer, that's who. 'Twere a drunkard with a torch. Came home 3 nights past in his cups, as he came home most nights. Only this night he found his good wife being seen to most thoroughly by the miller in the marriage bed. The both of them at it like the world was ending. And what, may he roast, didn't reach for a knife like a sensible, scorned fellow. He reached for the torch, he flung it, on the bed straw, and the bed went up, and the thatch went up, and the next house, and the next. 'Twere a dry month and a high wind. And by the time anyone was awake enough to bucket it, half the town was on fire, and the other half was running. She spits into the ash. 3 of them dead in that bed before they could so much as get their breeches on. And what with them, and 40 more, besides that the fire took on its way through. And that's your dragon, friend. That's the beast of Larkholt. A jealous fool and a torch. The silence stretches out, and a crow croaks overhead. But the fire was seen from Dunholt, you say, slowly, the bottom going out of everything. The whole sky. They said it was a dragon's attack. Aye, you can see a town burn from a long way off. She's not unkind about it. And you can hear screaming a long way off too, can't you? Easy thing, in the dark, to put one screaming together with another and make a monster of it. The other screaming, you say, the one from the hills, you mean? That's the dragon, aye. And now she looks at you differently, something almost gentle creeping into the expression. The look of a person about to tell a child a thing that won't fit right in the child's head. There's a dragon in the hills right enough. We've heard it, same as you. But the dragon never touched Larkholt, friend. Whatever they're telling each other in Dunholt to keep their suppers down. The dragon came after. The night of the fire, we were down here in the worst of it, trying to drag folk out of the burning, screaming to every saint there is to come and help us. She closes her eyes a moment, remembering something painful, then opens them. Out of the dark, over the rooftops, big as a barn, and the firelight all up its scales. And we thought 'twere the devil come for the lot of us. We fell on our faces in the road and prayed. The end of the world. And the dragon, she laughs again incredulously. The dragon flew down into the burning, into the worst of it, where no man could go. And it took things, in its claws, out of the houses that were already lost. And it took them off over the hills, and that was the last of it. She shakes her head, slow. We thought we'd died and didn't know it. And in the morning, when we came to count the dead, we found what it had taken. Not gold, though there was gold to take, not the silver out of the church. It went into the burning houses, and it carried off children's things. Thomas's hobby horse, the little carved soldiers from the toy makers. A whole basket of poppets and tops and a painted drum, off out of the smoke like it was the dearest treasure in the world. She looks at you. Tell me, friend, what manner of dragon doesn't feast on easy prey, and instead flies into someone else's fire to make off with a bag of children's toys? You don't have an answer. You are completely and utterly bemused at this turn of events. Surely this isn't how most people's first quests go. You stand in the ash of Larkholt with the crows and the drifting grey, and you turn the question over. Where did it go? Which way? Over the hills? You finally ask as you gaze up the nearby mountain path. The woman points north and west, up past the high stones where the silver breath grows, where the priest's 3 tongues of fire might be cut over a doorway, in the deep stone, where every road today has been pointing you whether you knew it or not. You feel the inescapable hand of fate guide you to see this through to the end. You're still going up there, she says. It's not a question. She sees the conviction in your gaze. I am now, you say, more than I was. She stares hesitantly at you, the sleeping child rising and falling against her shoulder. When you find it, the painted drum was my boy's. Davy's. Her hand goes flat against the child's back, and you understand that this child, the live one, is not Davy. If it still has the drum, that's all. If it still has the drum, you say, I'll bring it to you. And you start up toward the high stones, into the last of the light, with 3 quests in your pocket now, and not one of them the one you came up the mountain to do. The silver breath is where the herbalist said it would be. Below the high stones, on the switchback of the old goat track. Little grey leaves furred with frost, near invisible against the stone. And you'd have walked straight past if you hadn't been told to stoop. The leaves bruise as you gather them and give off a sharp, cold smell, clean as snow melt. A little bit bitter, that clears your head with every pull. There's more of it than you expected. You work the whole switchback, stooping from crack to crack, and fill the herbalist's waxed cloth with care, the way you'd want someone to be careful if it were your fever. And the small, honest task of it steadies your hands, which have not been altogether steady since Larkholt. It's full dark by the time you find the cave. You'd half hoped you wouldn't. You'd built yourself a small, comfortable lie on the climb up. That the thing would prove shy, or gone, or never have been. That you'd poke about the high stones and find nothing, and go down and tell a kind story to a frightened town. But the cave is not hard to find in the end. It sticks out quite plainly, the way nothing else on the mountain does. There's an eerie orange light deep back in the rock, and you catch a low rolling sound, almost below hearing, that you feel in your breastbone before your ears catch it. a sound you'd call a growl if it weren't so plainly, so heart-wrenchingly a whimper. You peer up, straining your eyes in the darkness and edging up onto the tip of your toes to get a good look. You see, over the cave mouth, cut deep into the stone and worn soft by more years than you've learned to count, 3 tongues of flame. Well, you think, that's the priests then. You hadn't expected to find both the things in one place. You're not sure whether that's God's plain hand or just the way of mountains. That all the deep places of the earth end up leading to the same hollowed out areas. The only problem is, whatever he needs you to find is in there. And in there is, against all odds, an actual dragon, it would seem. You ought to go in with the sword drawn, the way Rowan the Renowned would. It's only sensible. You don't want to make yourself an easy target. You cross the mouth of the cave, your heart going hard and high. As you take a few steps into the warm dark, something very curious happens. The sound halfway between a growl and a whimper stops, and there is a scrabbling. A great, heavy, thunderous, panicked scrabbling of something trying to get away from you, deeper into the stone, knocking things over in its haste. And a single sharp, terrified shriek. It's much smaller than the screams off the hills had any right to suggest. As you stand there with your sword up and your eyes adjusting, understanding dawns on you. That the thing in this cave is not hunting you. The thing in this cave is hiding from you. You let the sword drop. Easy, steady now, you utter into the darkness. You don't like how low and foolish it sounds, but you don't know any different. It's the same croon you'd hear your pa use gentling the Lord's horses, when a storm had them wall-eyed and kicking. Deeper in, you find the source of the orange glow near the back of the cave. There's a low block of stone, squared and built by hands long dead. The face of it has been cut deep by an engraving of 3 tongues of flame, barely visible beneath a crust of soot and ages. It's an altar, the Flame Keeper's altar, the very thing the old priest sent you up here chasing. And in the shallow basin atop it, a bed of old coals sits banked and glowing, throwing that uneasy light up the walls. It's fresh lit, days old at most, and there's only one thing in this cave that could have set ancient ash alight, without flint or kindling, or a hand to strike a spark. You look from the burning altar to the black beyond it, and a cold finger walks up your spine. But another, even stranger sight holds your attention. You see around the fire, heaped up the walls of the cave, is the horde. Everyone knows dragons are fierce hoarders, all the stories tell of it. You'd pictured gold. Now there is some gold to be certain. A few cups, a chain, nothing so grand in its value or history. But it is clear the gold is an afterthought, shoved to the edges. Because the heart of the hoard, the great careful heaped up middle of it, the thing the creature has built its whole, small empire around, is toys. There are hobby horses, a drift of carved knights, poppets with stitched faces and yarn hair, tops and balls and a whistle, and a wooden toy sword and a painted drum, the paint half scorched off one side. All of it has been arranged. You remark with great surprise. It hasn't been flung about or hoarded like a miser hoards, but set out and tended. The knights stood up in their ranks, and the poppets sat in a row with their backs to the warm stone. You feel, with almost a sense of sadness, that this is the way a lonely child arranges the only company it has and talks to them in the dark. A singular gust of wind breezes through the cave, and the fire from the altar flares up, extending the reach of its flaming fingers further, revealing more of the cave's structure. And in the deepest corner, pressed back against the rock as far as a thing that size can press, with its wings up over its head like a person flinging an arm across their face, is the dragon. You almost drop to your knees in fright and alarm. The thing is not small, but with its wings tucked in, it is far from the fearsome dragon, 'twere big as a barn, the Larkholt woman swore it was. Still, it's bigger than you, longer than 2 horses nose to tail. It scales the deep black of a moonless night across the back and shoulders, warming down the legs and throat and the long line of its face to a rich tan, near red where the firelight finds it. Big enough that if it wanted you dead, you'd be dead, and quite easily at that, and bring about the end of your borrowed legend. But you're still standing, hale and breathing, so clearly it doesn't want you dead. It's still got its wings over its head, and it's making itself small, smaller than its body ought to allow, and it's shaking. You can see it shake from across the cave, and from behind the shelter of its own wing, it watches you with one enormous eye. The eye is wet, the slit of the pupil flared wide in the dark, the gold of it ringed thin with fear, and there's no malice anywhere in it. Only the rawness of innocence found in the very young. You find your voice somewhere behind your own terror and exhale. Dear God, you're no monster at all. I reckon you're as frightened as I. It flinches at your voice, but rears its head up ever so slightly, as if to say, I'm not afraid. Even young dragons must have some pride, you suppose. Then it makes a sound back. It's a querying, hopeful, little sound, pitched up at the end like a question, and it lowers the wing a fraction to see you better. And you realize the question it's asking is the very same question it's been screaming at the whole dark country every single night, is the only question it has. And the question is, are you her? It thinks you might be its mother. The supposed devil come for Larkholt had seen the flames and thought its mother was near. It must have taken shelter here after not finding her, you think. Nay, I've not seen her. I'm sorry for it, you say, as softly as you can manage. The dragon understands tone, if not the words. The hope goes out of the eye slow, like the light going off the Dunholt church. The small, hopeful sound winds down into that low whimper you felt in your breastbone at the cave mouth. And the great young head sinks down onto its claws as it goes on watching you. Well, you'd not thought this far ahead. Surely you should leave while the dragon still holds no ill will towards you, before it gets hungry and changes its mind. You could tell the bailiff about the entire misunderstanding, but something tells you that it won't do. You can already hear in your ears the clamoring of the people in Dunholt telling you to slay it before it becomes a dragon grown and lays to waste their village. Indeed, they may not even ask you to do it. This creature seems so docile that a few angry villagers with pitchforks might see to it themselves, if they were to learn the truth of it. You sheathe the sword instead, making a show of it, so it can see you do it. And you sit down on the cool stone floor of the cave, an arm's length away from the dragon, and you say, "Peace now. I'm not her, and I'll not pretend to be. But nor will I leave you in the dark to howl after her. So I'll bide here a while. And you do. It takes a long time. You're in no particular hurry. You've nowhere to be that's better than this. Which is a strange thing to realize, sitting on a stone floor in the dark with a dragon. But it's true. After all, who in their right, God-given mind would prefer to run small, thankless errands for burghers and peasants, instead of keeping the company of a mythical dragon? You sit and you talk nonsense. You tell it about growing up in the village, the joy of cooling off by the streams after a day of play in the baking sun. You tell it of the spring festivals and of how bards play music with their nimble fingers, while everyone danced and laughed. You even confess to it about the time you stole strawberries off the cart and ate them secretly in the bush, only to be found out by your ma with the red juice around your lips. And she'd boxed you in the ears so hard, you've not ate a strawberry since. You tell it about the old priest and his story about the flame keepers. With every word, a little more of the fear dissipates from it. And so, here I sit, you finish, a fraud and a liar with a dragon to hear my confession. My ma always did say I'd come to a strange end. The dragon huffs a breath that stirs the dust between you. You'd like her, though she'd have boxed your ears too for stealing them toys from Dunholt. It happens very fast. One moment, the dragon holds back, with its neck stretched long, to sniff your boot from as far off as it dares. The next, it has decided you are safe, that you'll do in the place of the mother it's lost. It surges across the floor and into you, all warm scaled weight, shoving its head up under your arm and against your chest hard enough to put you flat on your back in the toy heap. It makes a deep, rumbling sound of joy. You'll try to describe that sound for the rest of your life and never manage it. But it comes out at a volume God surely meant for use across mountain ranges. A great rolling croon that starts in the chest you're pinned beneath, and climbs till the whole cave rings, till dust sifts from the stone overhead and your teeth buzz in your skull. In this moment, the dragon reminds you of the village dog that your pa said you couldn't keep when you were 8 summers old. You find instinctively that your hand has gone up under the great warm chin and is working into the soft scaled hollow there. And the croon goes up another notch into an ecstatic peal that rolls out of the cave mouth and down the mountain and across the high stones and out. You realize with a sort of helpless horror, even as you keep scratching, that the sound is traveling out over the whole countryside, out toward the forest and the burned town, and beyond it, faint with distance but unmistakable in the still night air, toward Dunholt. Down in Dunholt, the bailiff is standing in the square in the night, with half the town around him, faces turned up toward the black shape of the hills, and the sound comes rolling down to them off the mountain, and the bailiff's hand tightens white on the hilt of his ceremonial sword. God preserve us, whispers the turnip seller woman. Listen to the agony of it. Rowan's at it, says old Toller, gripping his brother's arm. They've found it. Hear that? That's no easy beast, that. That's a beast in the fight of its life. The sound rolls on. It rises and shudders and rises again. Hear how it screams, says the priest, who has come out into the square with the rest. His clouded eyes turned up toward the high stones as he pulls his patched robe tight against the cold. 3 weeks it's terrorized us, and now hear it. Now it knows what's come for it. He shakes his head slowly. Rowan's not slaying it quick, by the sounds of it. The Lord be thanked. They're giving it back every night of fear it gave to us. Threefold, the way the songs say. That's a thrashing, that is. That's a proper thrashing. 400 golds worth of thrashing, agrees the bailiff thickly, and a kind of fierce wet pride goes round the dark square. Neighbour gripping neighbour, listening to the great rolling cry come down off the mountain. Every soul of them certain that what they're hearing is the death agony of the beast that burnt Larkholt, and not, as it in fact is, the loudest and happiest sound a lonely young creature has made in the whole of its short, frightened life, because somebody finally came up the mountain in the dark and scratched it under the jaw. Sounds like Rowan's near finished it, says the bailiff approvingly. But you've not near finished it. Up in the cave, you have got an entire dragon's head in your lap, and it has gone boneless and drowsy. The great croon winding down by degrees into a low, contented, buzzing rumble. The wet eye gone half-lidded. You take a proper look at it now, seeing things that your fear and adrenaline skipped over at first. It's near enough a child, young anyway. You can see it now, it's still and close. The soft, unfinished look of it. The scales not yet hardened to a grown thing's armour. And it's hurt. You see that now too, and curse yourself for not seeing it sooner. The wound is low on the flank, half hid where the wing meets the body. A long, ragged gash, the flesh about it swollen and crusted black with old blood and worse. Days old by the look, it pains the creature even in sleep. A flinch runs through it when your hand strays too near. And there is the whole of it laid plain. The beast gone mad for slaughter is only a young thing alone in the dark, hurt and festering, with no mother to lick the wound clean, nor any soul to tend it, howling its pain at a country that answered with prayers for its death. The herbalist's parcel is in your pocket yet, the one she pressed on you for your own hide. Should the beast lay you open before you laid it down, she'd not begrudge it the saving, you reckon, even spent on the beast itself. You clean the wound with water from your skin, filled up, at the stream earlier today, and you crush the yarrow and the rest between your palms. Pack it into the gash as she bade you. Crush it, pack it, bind it tight. You've no bandage long enough for a beast this size, so you use your cloak instead. It's warm here anyways, actually quite hot on account of the dragon. It wakes halfway through and tenses up, and for a heartbeat, you think it'll have your arm off at the shoulder. But it only watches you, trembling, and lets you finish attending to the injury. And when its great mouth falls open in sleep again against your arm, you see, lining the front of the soft pink jaw, a row of surprisingly large teeth, and two gaps where teeth have been, and one so loose it's lying half out of the gum, hanging by nothing, the way a child's tooth hangs the week before it goes. It's losing its milk teeth, you think, and a very small idea begins to form at the edges of your mind. You stay there a long time while the fire burns warm, thinking it through. You cannot bring it back. That's the first thing. Whatever the truth of it is, the town has a truth of its own now. If you walk this creature down off the mountain, you will watch it die in the square that wept over you this morning. Frightened and confused, calling its question at the crowd. Are you her? And getting an answer it doesn't deserve. No, you'll not take it down. You can't take it with you either, more's the pity. And you sit with that one a while too, turning it over. Because some childish part of you wants to just keep it. Walk off the back of the mountain and over the next range and the next and never go near a town again. You and this legendary thing, an adventure no song would ever believe. But it's a fancy and you know it. It can't live a life trailing you down roads. It's a dragon. It needs the high broken country and the wide cold sky. In the grey of the morning, you'll do the small, honest things you came up here also to do. And you can do one more thing besides. It might just buy this creature the only thing you're actually able to give it, which is time. Time and a town downhill that believes its dragon is dead. You look again at the loose tooth hanging by nothing in the soft pink jaw. You whisper into the dead of night. God help the pair of us, a liar and a dragon. But I think I see how we can both make it out of this. You don't sleep much that night, or not at all. Toward dawn, the dragon stirs and shifts off you, and you ache in every part of your bones. It blinks up at you with a slow, returning memory. And the joy starts up its terrible engine again. The great chest swelling for another mountain-shaking peal. And you get a hand over its nose just in time. It's a great blunt wedge, that snout, scaled fine and smooth as river stone, with two long nostril slits that flare hot against your palms as the breath builds behind them. No, you say, with feeling. No, you're not to do that again, or you'll have the whole valley up here with torches. It lets you again scratch under its jaw at a volume that only rattles the nearer pebbles, which is a tremendous improvement. The great head lolls over slack and witless with contentment, the jaw falling open. You seize the chance while it's lost to the scratching. You bring your other hand up, get a finger and thumb about the tooth, and give it the gentlest twist. It comes free, bloody, and dangerously sharp. It makes for a very convincing trophy. The dragon works its jaw curiously for a moment, glad to be free of the ache, and goes back to leaning on you. You find the two gaps account for two more, somewhere lost in the toy heap. And you dig about until you turn up one of them, a fellow to the first, down among the wooden knights. Two dragon's teeth, white and curved and wickedly pointed, but entirely, harmlessly, milk. You wrap them in the herbalist's spare cloth and tuck them deep in your satchel, beside the silver breath. Proof, you tell the dragon, seeing its puzzled gaze, that you're dead. You don't mind being dead, do you? It's the best thing for you, being dead. A dead dragon's a dragon nobody climbs the mountain to kill. That leaves the priest's errand. You rub the back of your neck, wondering if it's worth the trouble. Picking through a dragon's cave for a scroll, a dead cult hid before your grandfather's grandfather drew breath. Where would you even start? I don't suppose you know, you say aloud, mostly to yourself, scratching idly at the beast's jaw. Where an old bit of writing's got to about this place. A scroll, a book, some such. 3 little flames cut on it, like as not. You wave a vague hand at the dark of the cave. The priest set great store by it. You expect nothing. You are talking to a dragon. But the great head comes up off your knee as it gives you a considering look. And then it heaves itself up and goes lolloping off into the void at the back of the cave. Claws clattering on stone, knocking its tail recklessly against the rocky walls. A small stone gets loose and hits you right across the forehead, drawing a streak of blood. Even better, you think to yourself, despite the stinging pain, smearing some of it across your neck, cheeks, shirt, and arms. The more convincing you look, the less inclined anyone will be to doubt your tale. There's a deal of scrabbling from somewhere deep in, the sound of a great body squeezing where it's a poor fit. A clatter, a pause, more scrabbling. and presently it comes lolloping back into the firelight with its whole hindquarters wagging, and something clamped proud in its jaws, which it drops, wet and gleaming, into your lap. A tube of waxed leather, gone hard as horn with the years, fully sealed, and slathered now in a generous coat of dragon spit. Well, I'll be damned. You breathe out. The dragon sits back on its haunches, looking at you with such beaming, idiot pride that you have to laugh. And you scratch it under the chin and tell it it's the cleverest beast in all the wide kingdom, which it plainly believes already. You wipe the tube on your trousers. Through the leather, you can feel the roll of the scroll within, intact, just as the old man prayed it would be. 3 tongues of flame are stamped into the wax of the seal. You go back after to see where it had got it from, just to sate your own curiosity. The cave narrows and runs into true dark. You pull out your torch and kindly ask the dragon to light it, without singeing your face off. It lets out a thin, steady stream of fire, and then hiccups. The last lick of fire catches your sleeve and burns it clean off, leaving a welt on your forearm. The dragon looks apologetic, but you pat its snout. All the more proof that you and I had a great scuffle, didn't we? The 3 flames are cut here too, over an inner arch of fitted stone gone half to rubble, and behind it a smaller dry chamber the dragons used as nothing but a place to root for treasures. There's a stone chest, its broken lid fallen beside it, where the tube must have lain until a moment ago. And in the corner, bones, sat in a way of one who lay down, knowing they'd not rise. The last flamekeeper, you suppose, who ran north into the high stone with the heart of all they knew, and died to keep the secret safe. You crouch a moment by the old folded bones and say a quiet word over them, for it seems ill-mannered not to. Then you head back to the cave proper, meaning to make your way out. But there's one thing more you mean to carry down, and you spy it near the bottom of the hoard. It's the little painted drum, the very one the Larkhold woman wept over. That was her dead boy's. You reach for it. The dragon's head comes round at once. As your fingers close on the drum, a sound starts up low in its throat. Not a growl, nothing so bold as a growl, more of a thin, wavering, wounded whine. And it pads a step nearer and noses at your wrist, sad as a mourner at a graveside. Oh, none of that, you tell it sternly. None of your whinging. This one's not yours, you great thieving lizard, and well you know it. The whine climbs. A vast scaled head droops over your hands reproachfully. Don't you give me that look. You've a whole mountain of plunder here, and you'll part with the one drum, for it belongs to a grieving mother. You tuck it firm under your arm. The dragon flops down with a thump and a gusty, martyred sigh. Aye, sulk all you like. But then the moment of departure arrives. The dragon follows you to the cave mouth and no further. It stops at the edge of the light, and you turn and look at it, framed in the dark of the cave. The morning sky is pale and enormous over the high stones above, and you feel the thing you've been holding off all night finally arrive. I have to go, you say. It knows the tone. It whines a question at you, and you can almost hear it asking, are you leaving? Are you leaving like she left? And it takes a step out of the cave towards you, into the cold light. I've a fever to carry medicine to, and an old man's request to fulfill, and a whole town that needs to think you're dead, so they'll leave you well alone. I have to go. But listen, you crouch down so you're small, and looking up at it. Listen, I'm coming back. And I'll keep coming back until you've worked out those wings of yours proper and well. And you've somewhere to fly and somebody to fly it with. You struggle getting the words out. Your throat is thick with emotion. You scratch it one last long while under the jaw, reminding it twice that it's not to shriek and fly over any of the towns, or steal from anyone, and that you'll bring it plenty of treasures for its secret hoard. Then you stand, and you make yourself walk down off the mountain. You walk the whole long way down through the high stones and past the silver breath, picking up a few more for the herbalist, and the old green forest in a silence that, on the return, isn't the bad kind. When you reach the slope above Dunholt and stop to look back, you can just see it. A small dark shape at the mouth of its cave, watching you go. You stop at Dunholt to give the soot-grey woman her boy's drum. You put it into her hands in the ash of her town, and she holds it tenderly. When she does speak, it's only to ask, "And the dragon?" "Dead," you say, and hold her eye while you say it, so she'll understand the shape of the lie and that it's a kind one. "I slew it. 'Twere a terrible fight. You'll have heard the screaming, I wager." "Aye," she says. "We heard it, right up until it went quiet." She looks at the drum in her hands. "'Tis a funny thing. At the end there it didn't sound like dying. It sounded almost like my little Davy's cooing." She stops and looks at you. "Aye," she says again, differently. "Dead. I'll spread it about. A town sleeps better with a dead dragon than a live one, true or no." "It does," you agree. "It surely does." And you go on, back to Dunholt. You find the herbalist in the low houses where the fever's running, and you tip the full waxed cloth and the full pockets besides out onto her table. She looks at the heap of silver breath. That tired, green-stained face cracks into a grin as she runs the plants between her fingers. "Well now, look at you," she says. come down off that mountain all bloodied and worn to the bone, and you still thought to bring me my herbs. There's plenty warmth under the teasing. Oh, and gathered right too, root left living. Not a leaf bruised that didn't need to be. You're a rare sort, dragon slayer. She comes round the table, wiping her hands on her apron, eyeing the blood up your arm with a healer's frown that doesn't quite hide the rest of the meaning behind her stare. Sit yourself down and let me see to those hurts before they fester. And you can tell me of the battle while I work all of it, mind. The screaming, the fire, the great beast brought low. I've a slow hand and a long evening. Heat climbs your neck. There's nothing you'd sooner do. But there's the bailiff yet to face, the proof to show, the reward to claim, the whole sorry mummer's play of it. And best done while your nerve holds. You clear your throat and nod your head far too eagerly. Oh, I'll return after, but I've the bailiff to see first, and his 400 gold, and I'd as soon have that done with. Her grin returns, pleased. Mind you do, Dragon Slayer, I'll keep the fire lit. You head back to the square, making for the chapel. Most of the town is asleep still, thankfully, and you keep to the edges. Only the cobbler is up, tapping away at his craft. He glances up as you pass, at your boots, only ever at your boots, and clicks his tongue at the ruin of them, same as he did the day you walked in. No nod, no word of the dragon. You'd wager the man's not heard there was one, and wouldn't care if he had. The whole town may sing your name to the rafters, but to the cobbler, you'll never be aught but a soul, too poor to mend their souls. The chapel door stands ajar, and the old priest is within, bent over his books by a guttering stub of candle. You set the scroll in his hands. The old man's fingers shake, taking it. And when he works the waxed leather open and draws the dry roll out into the candlelight and reads the first lines, he goes very still. Whatever the flame keepers set down there, it was worth a dead order and a folded skeleton in the dark, and an old man's whole last want. You can see as much in the way his lips move over the words, soundless. He reads a long while. You make to leave him to it. Stay a moment. He says it without looking up, lifting a shaky finger at you. You're owed a finder's due, and I'll not send the hand of Providence off empty. He rises slowly, joints cracking, and goes to a locked aumbry set into the chapel wall. From it, he lifts a small thing wrapped in oiled cloth. He presses it into your palm and folds your fingers shut over it. It came down with the order. I'd no notion what it was for. I begin to think it waited on the one who'd bring the writing home. You unwrap it. It's a pendant, very old and heavy for its size. A disc of dark metal that drinks the candlelight. Worked into its face are 3 tongues of flame. When your thumb passes over it, the metal is warm. It's a living heat. It travels through your palms, up your arms, and nestles deep into your core. It will not let you freeze, the priest says, nor take a chill, nor, I think, fear the dark overmuch. The keepers were folk of the flame. They did not go cold, in body or in heart. His clouded eyes find yours. You'll have use of it, I'd wager, where you're bound. And where's that, then? You ask breathlessly. I couldn't say, but you've the look of someone the road isn't finished with. He taps the scroll. There's more named here than I've years left to chase. Other halls, other hidden things, scattered when the order ran, and not all of them sleeping so quiet as this one did. He gives the ghost of a smile. If ever you tire of slaying dragons, an old man might have an errand or two, yet worth your time. You hang the pendant about your neck and feel radiant in your heat. The fire of a dragon burns in your heart. And now, emboldened by this, you go to give the bailiff his proof. The whole town packs into the square for it, which you might have expected. Old Toller and the turnip woman, the carter, the blacksmith, and every soul that wept over you a day and a half ago. All crowded close to see the dragon slayer make good. You stand in the middle of them and you reach into your adventuring pack. And you hold up to the grey daylight 2 long, white, wickedly pointed teeth. And the square goes up in a great roar, relief and triumph and joy, and the breaking of 3 weeks of held breath. The badly rung bell going mad in its tower. The bailiff seizing your hand in both of his and pressing heavy purse after purse, weighing your arms down with 400 gold pieces, and crying out over the noise of his people. Your reward, as promised, and may God send I never see the like of this last month again. He takes up one of the teeth and holds it to the sun, turning it, and his breath goes out of him in a long, wandering rush. Saints above, look at the size of the thing, look at it, and the blood not yet dry on the root of it. He shows it round to old Toller, to the whole square. Tore from the very jaw of the beast, this were. You'll have had to get in close for that, eh? In under the teeth, in past the fire. God's wounds, the courage of it. The songs will not do it justice, mark me, they never do. Rowan the Ravenous. They'll call you, he barrels on. Not hearing a word, his worried face lit up like a boy's. Nay, Rowan Dragon's bane. Rowan of the mountains, who climbed alone into the high stones where grown men pissed themselves to go, and came down again with the monster's own teeth in their fist. They'll sing it from here to the king's own quarters, see if they don't. He clasps the tooth back into your hand, atop the gold, both his hands folding round yours. His eyes wet. We'd have been ashen bones inside the week, the whole of us, babes and all. And you walked in off the road and you saved us. There's no coin minted that pays a debt the like of that. But this is what we have, and it's yours. Rowan the Deliverer. Rowan the Bold. Rowan. He runs clean out of grander words and settles, thick-voiced, on what he feels is the truest one. Rowan, our friend. And here, at the very end, you try one last time. You'd be lying to yourself if you said you didn't. With the gold in one hand and the false teeth held up in the other, and the whole adoring square hanging on you. Some last, honest, stubborn part of you opens your mouth to say it. It wasn't a beast, it was a child. And it didn't burn Larkholt. A drunkard did. And my name is Rowan, but I'm not your Rowan, and I never killed it. It's alive up there in the dark with its toys, and I'm going back. You open your mouth to set the whole towering thing straight at last. And you look at them. You look at old Tola, who'll be sleeping nights again for the first time in 3 weeks. You look at the turnip woman, who is for once smiling and not hurling insults at anyone who darkens her stall. And the bailiff's worried face gone smooth with relief. And somewhere at the back, the herbalist, with her arms full of silver breath, and the children who'll live because of it. And you think of the soot-grey woman down in the ash. God help you. You think of the dragon waiting at the mouth of its cave. And you understand that the truth set loose in this square right now doesn't save a single one of them. It doesn't bring back Larkholt. All it does is put the fear back in their hearts and send them up a mountain after a frightened child. For no better reason than that you'd rather be honest than kind. You close your mouth, you smile, and the smile is true, even if the day is not. It looks just like the songs, the square gone gold with the morning. The roaring crowd, the hero of a dozen songs. But the songs would have it that a hero rides out, finds a monster, and the world is the better for one less monster in it. And yet, the truth of it is far more heroic. It is a strange thing to learn on your first quest, but a true one. That the fearsome and the frightened are so often the same thing. Anyone can raise a blade against the thing they fear. Far fewer will go close enough to learn whether the fear was ever owed. In a few days, you'll return after the feasting and the celebrations. And after you mend your boots at the cobbler's, now that you can afford it. You don't think they'd survive another trek up there without the care. You'll stop by the toy makers and get the dragon a little drum or something of the like to add to his treasure pile. And maybe once it's learned to fly high enough as to not be seen, the two of you can see to that flamekeeper business that the priest had mentioned. There's trouble enough in the world to keep a dragon and a liar busy a good long while. A life of endless adventure awaits you. And that, my dear friends, is the end of your adventure tonight. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you're still up and watching this, Here's a little secret. The dragon is based off of my goofy boy, Santino. He's the sweetest and loudest dog you'll ever meet. And he loves hoarding toys and being a harmless menace. If you ever see him about the tavern, give him a cheeky little pet. He loves attention. But until next time, good luck on whatever quests await you, and sweet dreams.